All right, the next thing we are going to do today is we're going to talk about a concept called political efficacy. There's a few things I want you to notice in the picture here. All three of these like images would depict people that have a high level of political efficacy. In the background there, you guys may have seen this lady before. This is a woman named Jackie. She used to live in the Lorraine Motel downtown before it was turned into the Civil Rights Museum, and that was in the 1990s. The residents of the motel were kicked out so that they could build a museum, and she has been protesting in front of the Civil Rights Museum every single day since then. So we would say that she has a very high level of political efficacy. We'll explain that in a minute, but it means like she is motivated to act. And like that's obvious. Like she's been doing this activity, she's been spending her days doing this for many years now. We see another. This is a protester who was arrested for protesting in front of City Hall. They had like tied themselves to a fence, and the police cut them off. And this lady was arrested, and here she is resisting arrest and being dragged away. And it's clear she also has a high level of political efficacy. She's willing to get herself into a little bit of trouble for her political participation. And then this old man on the right, he's going to put a yard sign in his yard. Like that is also a form of political participation, right? He's not putting as much effort out as the other two here, but he is willing to make an effort because he wants to put his little yard sign out because he thinks it might help contribute to an election win. So let's talk about what political efficacy means and why these people are doing that. All right, so first let's talk about a little logical problem here. This is what we call the paradox of political participation. So here's the thing. Everybody knows, like logically, it doesn't make a lot of sense to participate politically, like especially like voting, right? Like voting is going to take time. It's you take time out of your day, you travel to the polling place, you might wait to vote, you cast your vote, you go home, you wait, right? Like you know that mathematically your one vote probably is not making a big difference in the outcome of the election. The chance that like your activity is going to have like some impact on the policy or the election result or something like that is very small. However, like the like democratic society would not function if everyone actually like acted on like weighing the cost and benefits of participation. So like the costs of participating in any way really outweigh the like potential impact you'll have on policy and stuff like that. Like everyone can figure that out. Like you voting not going to make a difference. You donating $10 doesn't make a huge difference. You being one extra person at a protest that already has so many people doesn't make a ton of difference. But collectively, we need everyone to make that sacrifice in order for democracy to function. And so this is going to bring us to the idea that we call political efficacy. So to define political efficacy, this means it is whether a person believes that their participation actually matters, right? Whether or not their participation actually impacts the government, right? So a person with like a high level of political efficacy is going to participate. That means that they think that their participation has an impact, can impact policy or like help choose candidates or something like that, but they think that their participation matters. And so that's a motivating factor to participate more. People with low levels of political efficacy, like they don't think their participation matters, so they don't participate. Um, and political efficacy is important. Like we encourage this in people. It's why we like tell people like how important voting is. We encourage people to like attend rallies when they have a chance, or we encourage people to join protests, organizations, whatever. Like we want to encourage political efficacy because it helps solve that problem we were just talking about of the fact that like, we need people to participate collectively. There are a couple different aspects of efficacy. The first, like internal efficacy, just kind of focuses on like, you know, inside yourself. Like, can you like understand the issues. And like that ranges from issue to issue, right? Like you might have a good understanding of like what gun laws ought to be or something like that, but you might not have the best understanding of like international copyright agreements or something. And then that's okay. Like internal efficacy is an important step in political efficacy. Like, right, if you don't understand the issue at all, people aren't likely to participate based on that particular issue. The other part of efficacy that's important is the external efficacy. Do you think that your activity can influence other people? Right? So like this is why like we don't have a lot of protests like out in very rural areas where there's no population, right? Like that wouldn't really influence a lot of other people. It wouldn't get a lot of attention and things like that. So we want to think about efficacy in terms of both being able to like comprehend and understand the issue that we're talking about, and external efficacy in both like having thinking whether or not you can influence other people, and that's going to involve like opportunity to influence other people as well. All right, let's take one more look at our political spectrum here. You guys know how this works. We talked about this, where we'd find our liberals, our conservatives, our moderates, and all this kind of stuff. Here's the thing, like, same chart. We've got our people on the extremes, our extreme right, our extreme left. Out at the extremes, those people are more likely to have high levels of efficacy. Okay, like they believe in stuff very strongly. Like we said, they have very strong ideological beliefs. They're also most likely of any of the people here to have high levels of efficacy. They're likely to participate. They're likely to have joined parties or to donate money or to be a part of a protest or something like that. Our people in the middle, even though there are way more people there, those people are more likely to have lower levels of political efficacy. So, like, they're less likely to participate. Like, they'll probably vote. Maybe we can encourage them to vote. They're not as likely to have joined a party or like gone to a town hall or donated to a candidate or something like that. So, important to remember about our political spectrum and what we talked about the other day. Like, even though these are our more extreme ideas, these are the people that are most likely to participate. And those people in the middle, not always as motivated to participate about any particular political concept. And the last thing we need to do today is we need to talk just for a few minutes about unconventional forms of political participation. So among the things that we'll talk about, we're going to talk about civil disobedience, where people break laws on purpose to try to impact policy change. And so in the picture here, of course, we see Rosa Parks sitting on a bus, very famous for refusing to give up her seat, basically breaking Alabama law in order to get arrested so she could show how silly that law is. Down in the bottom right, that's our friend Estelle Griswold from the court case Griswold versus Connecticut. You remember where Estelle Griswold was distributing birth control in Connecticut so that she could get arrested and take that arrest to court to prove how silly that law was too. So we'll talk about civil disobedience in just a second here. All right, so here are our most common forms of unconventional participation. So protests, that would be like the most common one. Like protests they can be disruptive, right? They're not always super disruptive, but they do tend to get a lot of attention, right? Like depending on where they are, how big they are, and stuff like that. Marches, basically, the same thing. Like a moving protest, you want to march through a city and like show people, how you care about an issue and stuff. So these are unconventional forms. Their goal is to get attention here. Boycotts or sit-ins, those are unconventional forms of participation. Those are disruptive to like economic activity, and the point is to get attention on some kind of policy that's a problem there. And the last one we'll spend a little time talking about, which is civil disobedience, when people are breaking the law on purpose. But an example here would be, this young lady in the picture. She broke the law as part of a protest so she could get arrested and get a little more attention for her protest. All right, unconventional participation. Why would people choose that? So here's some reasons. Like the main thing is that it is going to get attention, right? This is all about getting attention. So the people that do this are more likely to have very high political efficacy. They're more likely to feel very passionate about the issue, right? Especially people that go to a protest, right? They take a lot of time out of their day to like go and like march around and chant about, some topic that they feel very strongly about. The whole point of unconventional participation is to get way more attention than you would if you were just participating in some conventional kind of boring way. Like this is, way more interesting than going to a town hall meeting or something like that. You want to get other people to see what you're doing. And even though like the unconventional participation doesn't usually like convince like our public officials to change the policy, it is like the goal here is usually to sway public opinion. Like you want to get the public on your side, right? The point of sit-ins, like people sitting in at restaurants during the civil rights movement, was not like they didn't think they would just sit there and then people would decide, oh, we should change the law because they're sitting here. They sat there so that like people could see how committed they were, so people could see how mistreated they were, and eventually like public opinion came onto their side, and brought more like pressure to change that policy. So the whole point a lot of times here is to get attention from the media, right? The media will amplify your message, and that's why like these are activities that are a little more exciting, right? You want to get a little media attention, and that can really amplify your participation in a way that you couldn't really do it in a conventional way. So finally, let's talk about civil disobedience here. The whole point of civil disobedience is like a person believes that a law is unfair, so they're going to break this law on purpose. Now, here's the most important part. The point of civil disobedience is to be punished. The person wants to pay the consequences for breaking the law, because paying the consequences is the part that gets the media attention and the public support. Right? It's that the consequence is so ridiculous that it puts the media on your side. So here's the difference, right? Like when I go home and I'm driving down Poplar, and the speed limit is 40 miles an hour, and I'm doing 45, like I am doing that because I think that the 40-mile-an-hour speed limit is a little too slow, right? But I am not driving down Poplar hoping that a police officer pulls me over and gives me a ticket, right? I am breaking that law, but I'm breaking that law hoping not to get caught. That is not civil disobedience. That's just me being an idiot. That's just me breaking the law, right? So there's a difference between just breaking the law and breaking the law in order to be punished, right? The punishment is the important part here. So we've got a couple examples down at the bottom. Of course, Rosa Parks, right? Rosa Parks refuses to give up her seat. It was a staged event. Like the whole point was for Rosa Parks, particularly Rosa Parks, harmless older lady, to get arrested so that the rest of the world would look at what was going on in Alabama and be like, oh my God, they're arresting old women for sitting on the bus, right? So it's about the media attention. Susan B. Anthony voted, right, when it was against the law for women to vote, so that she could be fined, so that she could be punished, and show the world how ridiculous it was that women were punished for having an opinion about who should win the election. So the important part of civil disobedience here is that people want to pay the consequences, because paying the consequences is the important part of the participation. It will help get the public on your side. All right, that's it. Let's talk about our bigly ideas for the day. Here is President Trump and First Lady Melania Trump participating in a conventional way. They're voting. I don't know what looks like President Trump is cheating there. I don't know why he's looking where he's not supposed to look, but here they are participating in a conventional way. And look at this. Here's President Trump participating in a non-conventional way. You guys might remember this one time that President Trump went to a protest. Turned out to be a pretty big day. So here's President Trump at a protest. So here's what we want to do today. We want to make sure after today we can explain the reasons why people participate. All right, that's really important. We need to be able to understand why people participate. We'll also need to be able to explain why people don't participate. We'll need to be able to compare conventional and unconventional participation. Like we need to talk about reasons why people would choose one or the other. We need to be able to describe forms of conventional participation and describe forms of unconventional participation. We need to be able to describe examples of civil disobedience, and we need to be able to explain why people would participate in civil disobedience. And we need to be able to describe political efficacy. Talk about, why people would decide that they should participate or not. All right, and that's it for today. That's all we need to do to go through political participation. So I told you, a very, very simple day. Not much stuff here that you hadn't heard of before. You guys are pros. You are already participating in politics yourself. So I think a lot of this was probably old news to you guys, but we'll keep moving forward. We're going to talk a little bit about public opinion polling.